Welcome back to the off-season edition of the Preview Show. I'm Casey Campbell, and you know that is Harry Loomis. Of course, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Good to be on again.
Yeah, of course. You'll see a rotation of people around tomorrow. We're going to do our Cup Series recap this week. We'll also do our Xfinity and Truck recap later in the week. We also got some other fun stuff today. Go check out my interview with Jesse Love that I just uploaded, the 2021 ARCA champion. And I think you're going to like who I have tomorrow. I think a lot of people are going to like who I have tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. So before we recap the 2021 Cup Series year, let's start with some news that just came out today. The biggest one is Row Motorsports confirmed that they're going to have two cars next year. But the 34 and 38 didn't say who the drivers were, but they did say that Anthony Alfredo will not return to the 38 team.
Yeah, that interested me. I thought if a team was going to bring in a guy like Anthony Alfredo, who showed some promise in the Xfinity series, was very raw to say the least, I thought they would realize it would take maybe a couple years for him to develop, So it was kind of surprising to me that he only got 1 year and got let go. But I did hear rumors that I think he does have something lined up in the Xfinity series, which is good to see because Alfredo's too good of a driver to be completely out of a ride. Maybe this opens up a spot for someone like Matt DiBenedetto, who Super Speedway Racing is his bread and butter, and we know what Front Row just did at the Daytona 500. So it'll be interesting to see who they fill in that 38 ride.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I saw his name being floated around. I also saw Todd Gilliland's name being floated around.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see how that pans out for that one. Of course, also announced today a little bit of the mid-pack team news in Xfinity. Jeffrey Earnhardt announced today that he will be not be returning to JD Motorsports in 2022. Also, the Clash format came out today.
Yeah, I kind of like the Clash format. It seemed interesting. It looked like they were bringing in all 40 cars, which is different than what we're usually used to seeing in the Clash. But the way it's set up, I think it works. With a short track, I think it's going to put on a good show. Everyone seems to be pretty happy about it.
Yeah, it sounds good. Also handed down today, unrelated news, but and it is NASCAR news. DC Solar CEO and founder Jeff Karpoff has been sentenced to 30 years in prison today, and will also have to pay $790 million in a huge fraud case for obviously what happened in 2018 with DC Solar. So we'll have more on that in our preview show recap when we recap all of the news during the week. There's going to be some more of it, I'm sure, in the next 2 days. There'll be some more tonight. I don't know. But let's get to the Cup recap of why we're actually here. So what a season. 2021, of course, Kyle Larson with his 10 wins, the champion of that series. But what a year for the season. I just saw the ratings for the Phoenix race. They're up again compared to last year. So it's definitely there. But a lot of races were trending up. There were a lot of good races compared to not good races.
Yeah, I would agree. It seemed for the most part, seeing Adam Stern's recaps, it seemed like a majority of it was positive. That and Formula One was up, and next year we should see a continued surge because instead of NBCSN, that's going away at the first of the year. Now those races that would be on NBCSN are going to go to USA Network, which does tend to get, which tends to be in more households with basic cable plans. So I think that's definitely a promising sign for NASCAR.
Yeah, USA, of course, the USA Network. I know that also the motorsports programming will be coming on there. There could be some other stuff on all the related networks as well. I know CNBC will carry some races. There also could be some races on E, so that could be interesting. IMSA on E, that would be fun. Nothing like E holding a race. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that. But
that'd be fun to see. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Let's start with just overall. What did you? Let's start with three of your biggest surprises with this 2021 season.
Yeah, I think to me the biggest surprise has to be the downfall of Stewart-Haas Racing. You know, last year they had all four cars in the playoffs. Cole Custer had that miracle win. Eric Almirola was the most consistent version of him. He had his most consistent season. Clint Boyer was Clint Boyer, which really was all you needed for that car. If Clint Boyer is your fourth best driver, you're doing things right. And then obviously what Kevin Harvick did spoke for itself. So for all of that, I get Chase Briscoe came in for Clint Boyer, but for all four of those cars just to take such a steep decline, I get Almirola won a race, but other than that, their performance was nothing short of abysmal.
Yeah.
So the fact that with the same package, for the most part, they slipped so bad in a year, I really don't understand what happened there. But their team, I'm fairly worried about going into the next gen car, because I could see it being a Roush situation where Roush was one of the best cars in Gen 5, and then Gen 6, they start to struggle, lose Greg Biffle, lose Carl Edwards, and then all of a sudden they're a mid-pack team. They're worse than Richard Childress Racing.
Yeah.
So I fear a little bit for the future of Stewart-Haas Racing, which it could just be recency bias come into play, but still it's something you got to keep your eyes out for. Anyway, my second biggest surprise this year, I think, is William Byron. I think we talked about it a little bit on Sunday, but I was not very big on Byron this year. I saw him as a fringe playoff contender. I didn't know if he'd be able to get another win, but he proved me wrong. He was the best car at Homestead and got it done, and then was the model of consistency the rest of the way. I could see him taking another step forward. I think I had him going into the championship four in our predictions on Sunday. I don't know if I'll say the same thing going into February, but he definitely took some strides, and at the very least, I could see him being a Ryan Blaney, like one win a year kind of driver, which there are far worse careers than being a win a year kind of guy.
Ryan Blaney won 3 races this year.
I know, but I'm talking 2017 to 20. There's a long discussion about when's Blaney going to really break out, and then he finally got the 3 wins this year.
Yeah.
So I could see that happening. And then third has to be Kyle Larson. I mean, what more can be said about what he did? I think it's the best season since Jeff Gordon in 1998.
We've seen a lot of things that happen there. You just listed off some surprises this year. Now let's go into, you kind of mentioned this in your surprises, but give me 3 disappointments.
Yeah, so disappointments, Stewart-Haas Racing. I don't really need to say anything more about it. I'm just very disappointed about it. Yeah. Second, I'm actually going to say Alex Bowman, because I get he won the 4 races, but only 8 top 5s, not even 200 laps led. You saw what the other 3 cars did. William Byron had the best season of his career. Chase Elliott was Chase Elliott. And then Kyle Larson had the best season of my lifetime. So Bowman, to be fair, when he did have race-winning equipment, he won the race. He really was a threat for the win 4 times and won all 4 of them. But something wasn't right this year. They just weren't consistent. They just weren't up there frequently enough. I think their average finish might have dropped from 2020, which surprised me a lot, because 2020 really surprised me from Bowman. But I don't know. I just expect a little bit more. And I'm glad that he's getting an extension. I'm glad that Ally thinks he's the right guy, because I'm like Bowman a lot, but I don't know, just expect a lot more out of him this year.
Yeah.
And then third prediction, or third disappointment, I forgot what you asked me. I think I'm probably still going to have to say Kyle Busch. Same kind of deal. He had a down year last year, and I expected to see a lot more out of him. And he won 2 races, was eligible for the championship until Martinsville, which I couldn't believe that restart, to be honest with you. I thought I was going to see a bonsai move going into 3 and 4, last chance, and it just didn't happen. He just didn't have it. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that team next year going into the new car.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what Kyle Busch can do, because yes, he got multiple wins this year. I mean, only 2, but this has been a year that was been dominated by Hendrick, who, by the way, we just won the last 5 races of the year.
Right, no big deal.
Well, let's talk about Hendrick Motorsports for a second, because going into last year, we didn't expect them to do anything, and then Chase really came into his own, and since they won the championship, they've been dominant. And then get Kyle Larson over there, basically changed the whole company. All 4 cars for the first time won since 2014. And I mean, obviously they didn't win races. Chase won races. Kyle obviously won 10 in the championship. And Bowman won 4 races. And then of course Byron won earlier on. But what really surprised? Were you surprised by I know you mentioned that they were surprising to you, but what about them that really just kind of just took off? I don't know what it was.
I think it was Rick Hendrick's best job as a coroner because, we can talk about just moving Alex Bowman to the 48 instead of trying to find a new replacement because he was a free agent. I think we can talk about bringing Kyle Larson in on a prove-it deal. Rudy Fugle, bringing him in with William Byron, he saw the success that they had in the Truck Series, 7 wins in 2016. And then they come in, and it's lightning in a bottle right away. They wasted no time finding that chemistry again, winning at Homestead and being one of the most consistent drivers in the sport. He had that streak of top 10 finishes. I think it was 10 or something like that, and only got broke by an 11th in a shortened race at Circuit of the Americas. So bringing him in was huge. Chase Elliott, nothing surprised me there. The only thing that surprised me was that he didn't win in the playoffs because he's always been a big playoff performer. And he had a bunch of top 5s. He had a couple second place finishes, but I just thought we'd see a 3rd win at some point. It just didn't happen. But Alex Bowman, he was a complete opposite of how he's been in years past. He's had a lot of seasons where he's been up front a lot. 2020, around the pandemic, like right after we came back, he was dominating a bunch of races, ran well at Darlington, ran well at Charlotte and tracks like that, and didn't get the results he wanted. And this year was a complete opposite of that. He didn't run like he wanted to, but when he did have that equipment, he got the job done. So I don't know where the balance is there, but it's kind of 2 opposite ends, and there's like really no middle. So if they catch that, they're going to be right up there with the rest of them because all 3 of those cars, 24, 9, and 5, could have been in the round of 8. So, and then obviously, what more can we say about Kyle Larson? I think we were all kind of underestimating just how incredible a race car driver Kyle Larson is when we were coming in this year, because I think I had him pegged to win 2 races, and I would have been impressed with that. And that just seems ridiculous looking back on what he did.
So there were a lot of teams that had some good moments, but there were a lot of teams that had some up and down moments. There's a lot of teams that had that. A couple of them, RCR, Roush, Fenway, JTG even had some good moments as well. Plus those new teams, we got 2311. They won a race this year. You got some good performances out of Trackhouse as well. How do you think those kinds of teams did? Let's talk about the new teams specifically.
Yeah.
2311 Trackhouse and also Team Live Fast. They also they debuted this year. How do you think that the new teams did?
Well, I'll tackle Live Fast first because I feel like that's the quickest analysis. I don't think they had much high expectations. I don't think they were expecting to go out and compete for wins on a daily basis. But BJ McLeod's a smart race car driver. He's a smart man, and he was never in the headlines for the wrong reason. He was never the kind of guy that was running mid-30s and got into the wall, dropped some debris, blew an engine or something like that, and disrupted a race. He pretty much minded his own business. He pretty much kept it off the wall, avoided any controversy or anything like that. So I think that's a success. I think that's something they can build off of for the future. Trackhouse, I didn't have high expectations this year. Daniel Suarez was a guy that seemed like he kind of had a little bit of a stunted development because he kind of got rushed to the Cup Series with Carl Edwards' sudden retirement, which we still don't know what happened there. But they had some good runs. Bristol Dirt shocked me. I thought they had the car to beat there, which Suarez has like next to no dirt experience. It was a completely new concept for everybody, and he more than held his own. I think what did they finish, about 23rd in the standings? I think that's about what they could consider a successful season, and I think there's room to grow. I love purchasing all of Chip Ganassi's assets. I think that's going to be a great move for them, and I'm excited to see what Ross Chastain can do in that ride, because I think Chastain has a year in a competitive car. Trackhouse has a year producing competitive cars. I think that's going to be a good long-term fit. And as for 2311, I They pretty much did what I expected, aside from I didn't think they were going to win a race. Bubba had a great performance at Talladega, earned that win, and I expected them to grow to a two-car organization. I actually made a prediction about this early in the year, and I thought it was going to be Harrison Burton because I thought they'd want to keep him in the Toyota stable. Kurt Busch is way better than Harrison Burton in terms of a young team bringing in a new talent. I think Kurt Busch is a phenomenal gift for 2311. I think he's going to bring experience. He's going to get the most out of your equipment. He's going to contend for wins right away. And I think he's got the Monster Energy sponsorship too. I think that's the best of both worlds for both driver and team.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about his former team, Kurt Busch's former team, Ganassi. They, of course, are leaving the NASCAR scene. Actually, they have now left. Trackhouse has the sale has been complete. Trackhouse has kind of, moved into those assets there, and I saw some videos today. But overall, what would you say about Chip Ganassi Racing in their final year?
I think it was pretty much typical Chip Ganassi. They got a win. You kind of knew that the writing was on the wall when, we're talking about DC Solar. Their CEO is going to prison. They lost Target. They lost Credit One Bank. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but Kurt Busch was, it's easy to forget now, but Kurt Busch was going to retire after this year, which meant they were losing Monster Energy too. They had no long-term big sponsors anymore, and it was going to be a losing battle from that point forward. So I think Chip knew what he was doing. He moved it on to Justin Marks, who's going to do great things at Trackhouse. And I think both drivers, I don't think anyone's really notable is kind of left for dead, left without a ride. I think everyone kind of made the most out of that situation, including Chip Ganassi. So I think it's the best for all parties involved.
Yeah. A couple other teams I want to touch on. JTG. Of course, their last year as a two-car team. How do you think they did?
I mean, I expected more. I'm going to be honest with you. I expected more to both teams. I thought Ricky Stenhouse would take another step forward. And he did. He had a better start to the year, but it just wasn't enough. He was still not quite a top 20 in points. He was around Daniel Suarez area, like 22nd, 3rd, 4th, or like around there with Eric Jones. And then I think we talked about Ryan Preece. I thought he was going to take a bigger stride because 2020 could not have gone worse for him. And it was better, but it wasn't enough, So I don't know what's next for Ryan Preece. I think he's a very good driver, but I'm a little worried about where his next ride's going to come from.
Let's talk about Front Row for a second. I know that we kind of mentioned them early on in the show, but of course, they won the Daytona 500 this year. Improvement all across the board for that team. But what did you think about how Front Row did? This is probably the best year that Front Row has had as an organization from top.
Oh yeah, their year was a success after the month of February. It didn't matter what happened the rest of the year. They had a Daytona 500 win. McDowell got 2 top 10s after that, and they had a developing driver in Anthony Alfredo. That's a successful year no matter how you slice it. They knew what was coming in the playoffs. I think everyone knew that they weren't going to make it past the first round, but they continued to build. I think McDowell was in the top 20 in regular points for like half the regular season. He almost won Talladega. He finished 3rd there, was side by side with Keselowski coming to the tri-oval. I don't think Bob Jenkins could have envisioned a more successful season for his team, even if they're losing Alfredo.
Yep. All right, 2 more teams to talk about, and then we'll get to some of the tracks. Roush, Fenway, and RCR.
Okay.
What do you think about them?
Roush, I think Roush is going to be better next year. I actually predicted I have both their cars making the playoffs. Listen, I have a lot of appreciation for Ryan Newman. I have a lot of respect for what he did, but he just wasn't himself anymore.
Right. I
think his time has come and gone. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in SRX next year because he has a relationship with Tony Stewart. But looking towards next year, Chris Buescher might be the most underrated driver in NASCAR. He's a guy that's always going to get the most out of his equipment. He finished 20th in the number 37 car that has finished like 28th and 26th the past 2 years. Brad Keselowski resume speaks for himself. He's going to be a great owner. He's going to be a great addition to that team, and I think if anyone's going to be able to get Roush back to where they were in the mid to late 2000s, I think Brad Keselowski is a huge name to get to kind of kickstart that process and kind of attract some drivers over to the Roush stable, because Penske, Stewart-Haas have been just torching them the past few years in the Ford Brigade.
Yeah, for sure. We forgot to mention Penske, but overall, how do you think? They didn't make the championship 4, but they had all their cars in the round of 8. But unfortunately, Brad does not get a championship in his final year. Of course, he's off to Roush, as you said. Austin Cindric will be taking the 2. But overall, Team Penske in there in 2021. How do you? It seems like Seems like they did well, but not contending for a championship.
Yeah, I just don't think Roger Penske is going to be successful or going to be satisfied with the fact that none of his 3 cars were in the championship 4. You look at how good Joey Logano's been in the playoffs, and something was just missing this year. You know, he's always been a great playoff performer. Didn't even win on asphalt this year. His only win was at Bristol Dirt all the way back in April, or March, I forget what it was. But this was maybe Logano's worst year since 2017 when he missed the playoffs, just because he was a top 10 guy. But how many times did you hear Logano contending for a win? Especially in the second half of the season, it was just a little bit of a disappointment. Ryan Blaney, I'm happy to see finally got the monkey off his back and finally started to win multiple races. I think this is a good building block for Blaney, seeing that, you know, you can kind of take that next step. You were the second seed going into the playoffs. You might have been in the championship 4 had you not wrecked at Kansas. I think there's a lot to show for Blaney this year, even though he's been knocked down in the round of 8 before. I think he can build up this. Keselowski, I'm impressed even made it to the 3rd round, much less had a chance to make it to Phoenix, because besides Talladega, he did not have a lot going for him this year. He was kind of typical Keselowski. He had a couple good runs early in the year. Could have won Daytona, was second at Vegas, won Talladega, but then just didn't have the firepower the rest of the year. So I'm impressed that they were able to scrap out advancing through 2 rounds. But I think Austin Cindric is just a fantastic fit for that number 2 car. I think he's cup ready right now, and he's easily going to win the Rookie of the Year.
RCR, Tyler Reddick gets in the playoffs. Austin Dillon does not.
I'm pretty happy with RCR, to be honest with you. Dillon may have had his most consistent year. If you look at it, he was in the playoffs for a majority of this year. He's around 11th place in regular driver points without playoff points or anything like that. But then behind the playoff cut line, Kurt Busch won and got in. Eric Almirola won and got in. So that kind of just bumped him out. Same as Chris Buescher. They were both kind of sitting up there for a while. But it just didn't happen. He went for it at Daytona, but it also would have meant that Tyler Reddick would have missed the playoffs. And I think Reddick was easily the more impressive of the 2 RCR cars. Tyler Reddick might be my favorite driver to watch in the Cup Series today. He is just fearless. He's just going to give you 100% every second of every lap. And I think he's definitely the next driver to get their first career win.
Yep. Okay. There are kind of combined 2 things in there. It looks like there were a lot of new tracks this season in 2021. Of course, Bristol Dirt, COTA, Road America, Nashville Super Speedway. Overall, you've got to be. How'd you like all the new additions to the schedule this year?
I'm kind of in the middle on a lot of them. I think the 2 most successful had to be Road America and Nashville. I didn't love Road America on the 4th of July, but it blew me away. Yeah. The racing was good. The fan turnout was absolutely spectacular. That was maybe the most rowdy crowd I've ever seen at a road course, which was awesome to see. I think that could be a great new tradition. I think Nashville is going to work. I think that's a good temporary fit until you get the fairgrounds in. I don't think Nashville's the best track, but that's a market that's sorely, sorely missed NASCAR racing. And I think until you get the fairgrounds figured out and get racing back there, I think Super Speedway is a perfectly fine track to have it at. I think Coda's gonna work. I don't think it got a fair shake this year just because the race was plagued by rain, so I didn't really get a chance to show what that track and what that area can do for a race weekend. But the one track I'm not big on is the Indy Road Course. I just don't think NASCAR needs to be at Indianapolis anymore. I think you can just move to IRP and kill two birds with one stone because it's just not working out anymore. You know, Daytona doesn't host IndyCar. I think NASCAR should accept their losses and just not race at the Brickyard. It's just not right.
Well, if you haven't met this kid, he's not afraid to share what he has to say. Don't ask him about the point system. We'll not another example for another day. So, well, let's talk about another topic. This is the last year of the Gen 6 car. Of course, this was supposed to be the first year of the next gen car, but with the pandemic last year, that got pushed back to next year. But overall, how'd you think the racing was this year?
This year, I'd say the racing was good. I would say it's definitely better than 2020. I think it's way better than 2019. I still don't love the fact that we raced two separate packages for separate tracks. Like, I don't understand how Nashville, for example, is mile and a third, and they have the 750, and then you go to Kansas, which is just slightly bigger than that, mile and a half, and they take away 200 horsepower. I think there should be somewhere you can be in the middle for all tracks. But I think the racing itself was good. I think both, packages had some good moments this year. I thought the Bristol night race and New Hampshire were probably the two best races of the year for the 750 package. And the 550 package, I thought Homestead, phenomenal race. You saw Chris Buescher leading 60 laps early. You saw comers and goers. You saw multiple groove racing, upset winner. It was fantastic. I thought, the 550 package we know is big on restarts, and there were plenty of big moments at Texas, Kansas, Las Vegas early in the year put on a good show. I think both packages showed some good things this year, some things to work on, but I think it was a fairly positive send off for the Gen 6 car. Yeah.
What are you going to remember about this season?
Kyle Larson, easily. I didn't get to appreciate Jimmy Johnson's season in 2007 when he won 10 races. That was my first year as a NASCAR fan. I was 6 years old, didn't know what was happening. This is the greatest season I think I'm ever going to see in my lifetime. I can't put into words just how impressive Kyle Larson is. I think he is far from his last championship in NASCAR, and I think he's one of the best drivers I've ever seen. Just plain and simple. I think he's the most talented race car driver to enter the Cup Series since at least Kyle Busch.
Absolutely. So that's going to be the 2021 Cup Series recap. Sorry we couldn't get to everything. Tomorrow we'll talk Xfinity, we'll talk trucks later in the week, and then we'll recap all of the news this week coming right up. So it's definitely gonna be fun. You'll see this guy around a lot, but we'll obviously talk some more. Like I said, we got an interview I think a lot of people are gonna like. So coming up tomorrow. So that should be fun. Stay tuned for that. But that's gonna do it. I'm Casey Campbell. Thank you so much. And be sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see.